Brahmagyanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Purnam Supari Prajukacharya Ashtotar Satashi Shrimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai,
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai.
Jai,
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamana Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Bol. Thank you, Akendra Prabhu, for the nice kirtan. Let me just complete my setup here. Good. Yes. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtata Deshatarane Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for coming. As we continue our Ishtagosti, we've been discussing the question, what are the four rules? The understanding being that we may not fully know what these four rules are. But Srila Prabhupada explained that the pillars of sinful life are intoxication, gambling, meat eating, and illicit sex. And when these four pillars are dismantled, then sinful life is finished. Just as with a house, when you pull down the pillars of a house or a building, then the whole building collapses. So sinful life also collapses, or these four rules are meant to collapse the edifice of sinful life. In the Bhagavad Gita, Yesham Tvantagatam Papam Jananam Punyakarmanam Te Dvandvamoha Nirmukta Bhajante Mam Vridhavrita. When one is done, when one has reached the end of sinful life, Antagatam Papam, and one is engaged in all pious activities, then one can be freed from duality and illusion and engage in devotional service with full determination. So we've discussed the intoxication, gambling, meat eating, and now we're beginning our discussion of the fourth rule, no illicit sex. I suppose that a disclaimer here is warranted. In discussing these principles, I don't intend to discuss or criticize whatever instructions various ISKCON gurus may have given to their disciples about no illicit sex. Those gurus have accepted the great responsibility of guiding many, many disciples in their personal lives. And it would be presumptuous of me, with my small handful of disciples, to second guess or criticize my godbrothers who've accepted greater responsibilities than I. So my main purpose here is simply to convey what Srila Prabhupada said, and I leave it to you and to everyone else to consider how those instructions should be applied. Let's see. The explanation of this principle, no illicit sex, is well explained by Srila Prabhupada in an early letter, 20 September 1968, to Satsrup, at that time Dasadikari, by Srila Prabhupada's instruction. He had recently married Jadurani and had inquired from Srila Prabhupada. So in your letter of the 17th instant, you have very frankly inquired from me about householder life, especially in the matter of sex relationship. The sannyasi is not supposed to be asked about anything sexual. But still, because you are so much dependent on my instruction, so I must give you information as far as possible. Married life is not for sex indulgence. The principle of marriage is on the background of getting good children. So the householder is allowed to have sex life once in a month, just after the menstrual period. The menstrual period prolongs at least for 5 days. So after this 5 days, one can have sex life, provided he desires to get a child. And as soon as the wife is pregnant, no more sex life until the child is born and has grown up at least for 6 months. After that, one may have sex life on the same principle. If one does not want more than 1 or 2 children, he should voluntarily stop sex life. But one should not strictly use any contraceptive method. That means one should strictly not use any contraceptive method and at the same time indulge in sex life. That is very much sinful. If the husband and wife can voluntarily restrain by powerful advancement of Krishna consciousness, that is the best method. It is not necessary that because one has got wife, therefore you must have sex life. The whole scheme is to avoid sex life as far as possible. And if one can avoid it completely, then it is a great victory for him. Married life is a sort of license for sex life on condition of raising children. So that's quite clear. Hare Krishna. The one point that I wanted to point out, the principle of marriage is on the background of getting good children. The Vedic culture is very particular about that. It's very much concerned with begetting good children, what we used to call good breeding. Because it's understood that the consciousness of the parents at the time of conception influence what the nature of the child will be. And therefore, the Vedic culture was careful in that regard. First of all, careful about who should marry whom, and then careful about the process of begetting good children, so that those children could participate well in the Vedic culture and achieve success in their human form of life. So with that in mind, the duty of the householders was to beget good children. And with that in mind, Krishna says, Dharmaviruddha bhuteshu kamosmi paratarshava. And Srila Prabhupada comments on that, I believe. Let's see. Bhagavad Gita 7:11. The strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles, dharma, should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious. That's Dharmaviruddha kamosmi. And Prabhupada lectures on that. He says, even in sex, if we can remember Krishna, how? That is, Krishna says, Dharmaviruddha kamosmi. Sex life, which is given permission in the Shastra, that is Krishna. The Shastra gives you permission for sex life only for begetting nice children, not for enjoyment. That is illicit sex. If you make love, fish, 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 and have sex life, that is illicit sex. So that is dharma viruddha. Then, so we can adjust our material activities, eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing. It can be adjusted in relationship with Krishna, provided we take direction from Krishna. Even eating, sleeping, mating can be utilized as Krishna consciousness if you follow the rules and regulation. There is facility. And as soon as you deviate, then you become subject to the control of Maya. Yagyartat karmanon yacha loko yam karma bandhana. If you simply act for satisfying Krishna, then you are all right. And as soon as you do it for your own sense gratification, karma bandhana, you become bound up by the laws of karma. We should be very careful, therefore. It's December 4th, 1975 in Vrindavan. So this is our starting point, and there's more to come, of course. And let's see, I can either go on speaking or I can take some questions. I'm just wondering what's the better approach. Take some questions or take further comments. Let's see. Let me just adjust my outline here a little bit. Okay.
Tulsi Priya has her hand raised. I think she's
okay. Let's hear from Tulsi Priya.
Hi, Krishna. Actually, this is just a housekeeping thing. I was asking my husband, for some reason, I can't write anything in the chat, and I can't, when I click raise hand, it doesn't show that it's raised. So I was wondering if it was something to do with the settings or if it's just me.
That he would have to say. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. No questions just yet.
I see your hand is raised, though.
Yeah. For some reason, I think when I'm recording, things get, like last time, the last Thursday class when I was recording it, the screen got frozen. So I think I'm semi-frozen right now. Anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just was trying to get clear on what was going on here.
Okay. By the way, just since you mentioned housekeeping, there's, I've been in touch with Anutama Prabhu and other members of the Grahastha Vision team. And Anutama Prabhu asked me to mention that next weekend, which is actually this weekend, November 20th through 22, is the virtual mantra retreat. Among discussion points, Perils of Pornography by Mahatma and Men, Marriage, and Myths by Partha Prabhu, both of which may be of interest to your students as well. For men only, a small donation is requested to register mantraretreat.org for more information. So you are duly informed, and those who wish can take advantage of that. Those men who wish can take advantage of that retreat. Just to, since I quoted once from Bhagavad Gita as it is, I thought I'd quote again. This is the purport to chapter 16, verses 1 through 3. Then as far as Dhamma, self-control, is concerned, it is not only meant for other orders of religious society, but is especially meant for the householder. Although he has a wife, a householder should not use his senses for sex life unnecessarily. There are restrictions for the householders, even in sex life, which should only be engaged in for the propagation of children. If he does not require children, he should not enjoy sex life with his wife. Modern society enjoys sex life with contraceptive methods or more abominable methods to avoid the responsibility of children. This is not in the transcendental quality, but is demoniac. If anyone, even if he is a householder, wants to make progress in spiritual life, he must control his sex life and should not beget a child without the purpose of serving Krishna. If he is able to beget children, who will be in Krishna consciousness. One can produce hundreds of children, but without this capacity, one should not indulge only for sense pleasure. And I have a note to myself to see another purport, so let me just quickly see what that is. Okay. Well, that's really, I'm starting to multiply quotations here, but we will, and we won't go, I think, too much further in saying what's already been said. But this is the purport to 5.14.9, Bhagavatam. In Bhagavad Gita 7.11, it is said, Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi paratarshapa. Sex is allowed only for the begetting of children, not for enjoyment. One can indulge in sex to beget a good child for the benefit of the family, society, and world. Otherwise, sex is against the rules and regulations of religious life. A materialistic person does not believe that everything is managed in nature, and he does not know that if one does something wrong, he is witnessed by different demigods. A person enjoys illicit sex, and due to his blind, lusty desire, he thinks that no one can see him. But this illicit sex is thoroughly observed by the agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the person is punished in so many ways. Okay. And there's more. It's quite a heavy purport, but that gives you the essence of it. So I've especially meant to point out that this elaboration or clarification of what this rule is found in Srila Prabhupada's earliest teachings. It's found in Bhagavad Gita as it is, which is in one sense very, it's our most distributed book practically, or one of our most distributed books, most basic text. And this is an open instruction and often repeated. Let's see. We have a comment here from, let's see if I move my little cursor, from Venkatesh. Is there a tradition in Jewish Christian community that they take blessings from the rabbi or priest and rest of the community before a family decides to procreate? I just don't have much background about that, what the rules are in the Jewish or Christian communities. I can't really tell you, Venkatesh, but I will tell you what Srila Prabhupada instructed. And it seems like you already know, but since you've raised the question, but I will come to that. Oops. I see. Hey Tut, this is 7:12 11, Bhagavatam. Etad sarvam grahasthasya samam natam yaterapi guru vrittir vikalpena grihastasyartu gamina. All the rules and regulations of varnashram apply equally to the householder and the sannyasi, the member of the renounced order. The grahasta, however, is given permission by the spiritual master to indulge in sex during the period favorable for procreation. Purport. It is sometimes misunderstood that a grahasta, a householder, is permitted to indulge in sex at any time. This is a wrong conception of grahasta life. In spiritual life, whether one is a grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, or brahmachari, everyone is under the control of the spiritual master. For brahmacharis and sannyasis, there are strong restrictions on sexual indulgence. Similarly, there are strong restrictions for grahasthas. Grahasthas should indulge in sex life only in accordance with the order of the guru. Therefore, it is mentioned here that one must follow the orders of the spiritual master, guru vrittir vikalpena. When the spiritual master orders, the grahastha may accept sex life. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, dharmaviruddho bhuteshu kamosmi. Indulgence in sex life without disobedience to the religious rules and regulations constitutes a religious principle. The grahastha is allowed to indulge in sex life during the period favorable for procreation and in accordance with the spiritual master's order. If the spiritual master's order allows a grahastha to engage in sex life at a particular time, then the grahastha may do so. Otherwise, if the spiritual master orders against it, the grahastha should abstain. The grahastha must obtain permission from the spiritual master to observe the ritualistic ceremony of garbhadhan samskara. Then he may approach his wife to beget children, otherwise not. A Brahmin generally remains a brahmachari throughout his entire life, but although some Brahmins become grahasthas and indulge in sex life, they do so under the complete control of the spiritual master. The kshatriya is allowed to marry more than one wife, but this also must be in accordance with the instructions of the spiritual master. It is not that because one is a grahastha, he may marry as many times as he likes and indulge in sex life as he likes. This is not spiritual life. In spiritual life, one must conduct one's whole life under the guidance of the guru. Only one who executes his spiritual life under the direction of the spiritual master can achieve the mercy of Krishna. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasada. If one desires to advance in spiritual life, but he acts whimsically, not following the orders of the spiritual master, he has no shelter. Yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. Without the spiritual master's order, even the grahastha should not indulge in sex life. Well, Venkatesh said I had heard something about this, just wished to confirm facts. Okay, so at least as far as Srila Prabhupada's instructions are concerned, the facts are now confirmed that Srila Prabhupada taught that the grahasthas may have sex for the purpose of begetting Krishna conscious children, not otherwise, and that too with the permission of the spiritual master. Praveen says, how is it that the children of devotees who are initiated are not taking up Krishna consciousness? Would the way Prabhupada wanted the children to be trained in Gurukul have made some difference? Well, of course, now we're opening a huge question, why some children of devotees become staunch devotees and others not. There's a lot that goes into that. And I think we won't even attempt to take that up here. We can say that, of course, everyone is an individual. It's not that we have the history of Maharaj Anga, who was a great devotee of the Lord, but had his son Vena, who was demonic. So it's not guaranteed that because one is a devotee, the children will be devotees. We have Srila Prabhupada himself, whose children didn't become staunch devotees. We won't, I guess, go into anything further about his children, but it's not automatic. And yeah, I think we won't go too far into that question. It's just that's a separate Ishtagosi if you want to have that one. Anything else so far?
Maharaj, I was contemplating some of the homework that you gave us last week, and I wanted to know if that's something that you wanted to bring up today or maybe save for a later installment of this topic.
Well, that's a good question. I think right now we're dealing with the basics of what Srila Prabhupada taught, and we can look at what's in those articles, which perhaps reflect, what's actually going on in distinction to what Srila Prabhupada directed.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else so far? Yes.
Hi, Krishna. What I find, at least in my experience of having discussions with people on this topic, it seems that there's perhaps a deeper issue underlying the reason that there is any sort of controversy or confusion on the topic. And that's the idea that I think it's psychological. A lot of us come to Krishna consciousness because we're confused, we're suffering, and then we come to Krishna consciousness and we get so many questions answered. We get the shelter of the spiritual master, and our consciousness kind of changes a little bit. And in new devotee syndrome, we start feeling good about ourselves because we've changed so much. And then we have to deal with, once the glow wears off or we start making offenses or whatever it is that causes, that honeymoon phase to be over, we have to start dealing with the reality of our existential situation, which is that we're fallen. Even though we've been greatly elevated, we're still fallen. And it seems like we don't want to be confronted with that in real life. It's easy to say in a very humble mood, oh, I'm so fallen. But when you have to deal with your material desires in the face of the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, then we don't, it's very difficult, or we're in denial or whatever, and we don't want to say, I'm fallen and I'm not following. We want to say, well, he didn't mean it this way, or he didn't mean it that way, or come up with a bunch of different reasons for why we can't do it, instead of just saying, I'm fallen and I've fallen down again. And I think there's a huge difference between being fallen and acknowledging you're fallen and lying down and staying there. You know, we can be fallen and have fall downs, but get up again and accept the standard. What's that verse? I can't remember somebody, the phrase that I always remember is like one who's not resentful of the principle. And it's talking about
Yeah.
following the instructions. And that phrase, not resentful of the principle, always struck me. And it seems like there's a lot of resentment of the principles sometimes. Instead of just accepting them and accepting our inability to follow them, sometimes we get resentful of the principle.
Yeah. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, this is 331 Bhagavad Gita purport. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely, without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Ye me matam midam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shradhavanto suyanto muchante tepi karmavi. That's the verse that Srila Prabhupada's commenting on. I think there are two things I'd want to say in response to what you've brought up. One is that, yes, we should not adjust, or rather, what's the word? Not adjust. Reinterpret Srila Prabhupada's instructions in such a way as to try to make them something other than what they are. They are what they are, and they're clear. And there's a difference between trying to follow them with varying degrees of success or failure, and trying to rewrite them to say that, well, he didn't really say that, or he didn't really mean that, or if Prabhupada were present today, he would say something other than what he said. So I think that's a valid point. Another point that I'd like to bring up is that I'd like to avoid finger pointing or sort of condemning devotees who may not be following these principles strictly. One could, the spiritual master could condemn them, or in other occasions one might wish to speak strongly something. I think I'd especially like to bring these matters up first of all, for clear understanding, what did Srila Prabhupada teach, and then for introspection, because ultimately spiritual advancement is one's own project. It's not sort of a corporate, especially in the matter of sex life, it's not a corporate program where, we'll send around, what should we say, enforcers to make sure everybody's following. And if we discover that someone is not, then we'll do something retaliatory. But these teachings are there for our benefit. Srila Prabhupada is writing these books for our benefit, to instruct us, to guide us, to help us, to benefit us. And therefore, those who most want to gain from Srila Prabhupada's teachings would do well, first of all, to understand them, and then second of all, to follow them. And if one is not following, then to try to improve one's position so that one is following. That's the spirit of the thing. So that one can ask oneself whether he's a brahmachari or grahastha or sannyasi, am I following? Or how strictly am I following? And should I be improving? And if so, what should I do? So it's in that spirit rather than in a sort of reading the riot act to people, the spirit of reading the riot act to people and shaking fingers at them, that I'm conducting this discussion. And that's not to dampen the spirits of any of you here who would like to say something relevant on it, and to say, well, okay, you can't say that because then you're condemning people. But it's just a thought. Okay, someone else. Yes, Kamalani. The old-fashioned raise hand feature. I think we need to.
I don't know how to do the other one. Anyway, we can see, I can imagine for a sannyasi, it is a kind of difficult subject for everybody. I think everyone, is shy to speak about it as devotees. Like, the non-devotees, they sing songs about illicit sex all day long and read books about it, romance novels, all of this stuff. And I haven't attended any of the Grihastha Vision Team seminars or even read their books, but it's kind of, can cause a lot of confusion. Like, for one thing, let's, how Srila Prabhupada, I know all of these very high standards that Srila Prabhupada speaks about. And of course, I can attest, if you want to follow that, then marry someone you're not very attracted to. Like Prabhupada's father told him, marry the other girl that, and because one person told us, people like sannyasis think that you're such good grihastas, but you're terrible grihastas. They say that because you're good renunciates, because you live like brahmacharis and not like grihastas. And so, like they say, Prabhupada did say, if you have sex desire, then you should get married. He said that. So why get married except to, if they're not going to fulfill sex desire? And then again, according to these teachings and the consciousness, like, you don't want to have desire, even to conceive a child. What we want is like pure consciousness fixed on pleasing Krishna, and this is for the satisfaction of Krishna, to beget a Krishna conscious child. But then it kind of takes the fun out of it, you could say fun, like someone said, right, to Prabhupada, why even bother? And he said, that's the point, why even bother getting married? And, so it's kind of a catch-22. Urmila gave a seminar at New Vrindavan, and I just remember one thing she said. It's like, she said, like, when we take prasadam, we're honoring prasadam, but you're enjoying the prasadam, not like Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, wasn't it him such an extreme renunciate, or was it Jagannath Das, where they just ate out of a skull, everything mixed together, and not really at all for the flavor of it, but for the just nourishment to stay alive. And, so there's kind of, I'm confused, and there's a catch-22. Are you supposed to enjoy or not enjoy? And, of course, like a lot of it's in the mind, right? A man's attracted to a woman and meditating how I'd like to marry her. And that's often a big consideration why they'd like to marry, to have a sex partner. I think women, not as much, it's not a big factor in getting married. And so just like like it can be, oh, like I've just seen, like, of course, if one of the partners, and people go through different phases, and I believe astrological phases and ages in life, like a woman when it's near the end of her childbearing years, there's kind of a natural, you could say, urge or desire, because pretty soon she won't be able to produce children anymore. So there may be more like hormones or whatever. And then men probably usually when they're young, and passionate. But it seems like in a marriage, you're there to help each other. So I've heard others be advised, like if the husband is very sexually agitated, and then the woman, totally refuses, then she's not really helping him. I've heard someone, be advised in that way. Well, you have to assist your husband so he's not so agitated. And I've seen on more than one occasion where a woman will leave her husband because he's like that. Well, in our vernacular, he's lusty. So she'll leave him, and then she ends up marrying somebody else who's also lusty, you could say. She breaks up the marriage because of that, rather than like was mentioned by Tulsi Priya, kind of admitting maybe that we're weak and helping each other, and realizing it's just a phase. Like I imagine how many sannyasis, I mean, taking sannyas, at 22 years old, and then, they hit like 30 years old and they're like, their senses are burning, thinking, and how many have not made it. And, you know, and then, so what I'm saying is, if they were married, how you get through it. Like people experience sexual agitation at different phases in life, and then you get through it by the practice of Krishna consciousness. And just attending the morning program is just such a big plus in quelling sex desire, because first of all, you have to go to bed early to get up early, and then you're fully engaged in that, and you're both engaged and satisfied with your mind and senses. So I don't know if I'm making any sense, but yeah. And about rewriting, like I'm like I've thought different times that Prabhupada might rewrite things if he were here, and we could discuss with him, like, as you know better than anybody, and sure, and like adjust. And he did adjust many things for the Western mentality, and who he had to deal with, right? Who he was working with. I know one leader said, in the Manu Samhita, the law book, that says, that once a month, and people say like this, that you should satisfy your partner once a month, even if, besides having children. Now, having children, as you mentioned, that's the purpose of sex life, procreation. So, that means, of course, how many, children do you want? So you want 2 children. So then sex life, sometimes one time it happens. A woman can get pregnant on the first try. And then, some years later, another time, a few times to get pregnant. So in your whole married life, you may have sex just a few times. And unless you really want a lot of children, and even then, even if you want 10 children, that means, first of all, he's saying I'm talking too much. First of all, that means the woman's very fertile and she'll get pregnant easily. And then, there's no sex for 9 months of pregnancy and 6 months at least after, we heard. So, you know what I mean? It's a little confusing, and I think it's very much individual, like what people, um, what they need. I know, like somebody mentioned, our second generation. I mean, I don't know, I don't know too many that follow Garbhadan Samskara. They've said, well, what I do is I pray. I pray to have a good child, but don't really follow the whole protocol that we have of chanting 50 rounds and all of that. So I'm just like maybe rambling, but expressing, I guess, some of my confusion, like how would I advise somebody? And of course, one of the great benefits of old age is naturally sex desire diminishes in old age. And so anyway, maybe others would like to respond, respond.
Or Maharaj.
And Maharaj, of course, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I just rambled on and didn't make a whole lot of sense.
There's a lot of good things that you said there. First of all, just responding to Tulsi Priya, no, I wasn't criticizing you for reading the Riot Act. It's understood that you were including yourself, and it was a legitimate point that you made. Several things that you said I thought deserved a response from me. The first is that really, as you said, that as a sannyasi, or implied in what you said, although I don't think it's what that you meant to bring it out. I'm in an awkward position because really this is not a topic for sannyasis.
Right.
If we really want to dig into this topic, I should probably exit the discussion and let others handle it, because it's not really the business of as Prabhupada wrote to Satsrup Maharaj, that sannyasi should not be asked questions about sexual matters. But I'm only bringing, taking this role really in the interests of trying to serve Srila Prabhupada by seeing that his instructions are understood. And there's a lot of territory that, I would duck out of when we get into the particulars of all the ins and outs of all the different issues that arise in householder life and so on. It's probably beyond my territory.
Your payroll.
Excuse me?
Pay grade.
Beyond your payroll.
Yeah, beyond
your
my pay grade. Beyond my pay grade and beyond my territory. But so there are limits, but having gone this far, we'll keep going. I very much appreciated your point that if one wants to follow these 4 rules strictly, then it requires good sadhana. It's not that we'll sort of let everything else go hang and be able to, or be loose about everything else and then be strict about this principle. It requires strong spiritual life. It requires strong spiritual life. Which means hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll hear so much that clarifies the nature of sex life and the nature of householder life. If we don't hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, then everything becomes relative, everything becomes, psychology becomes more important than Shastra. So I think we need to hear regularly from Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's the first thing. We need regularly to see the deities. Prabhupada made that point also, that sex desire diminishes when we see the beautiful form of Krishna. So we need to see the deities, serve the deities. We need to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. We need to associate with devotees. We need to chant Hare Krishna very seriously. And we need to live in a spiritual atmosphere. So we're meant to be serious about all these things. Prabhupada wants to deliver us from material existence and wants us to, to get to, he said, to get free from birth and death in this lifetime, if possible. So that's not a small project. It's not sort of a, well, you join a religion and because you're a member of that religion, everything happens. It requires, or Krishna consciousness requires, serious effort. And it begins with, well, first chanting 16 rounds. It doesn't begin there, it begins just before that with a little interest. But once one is initiated, then one agrees to chant 16 rounds a day and to follow these 4 regulative principles. And that gives one great strength in Krishna consciousness. So the following of the 4 regulative principles, especially this one, depends on the other things also, on hearing, on chanting, on serving, on being always engaged in Krishna's service, making Krishna the center of our activities. Otherwise, these principles will be difficult. On the other side, it can also be said that if we don't follow these principles, then, or if we don't follow these 4 rules, then everything else becomes difficult. How does one practice yoga? How does one concentrate the mind? How does one practice control of the senses and still indulge in sex life as a matter of enjoyment? That will be, is that yoga? There's bhakti yoga, there are other forms of yoga. Prabhupada points out in Bhagavad Gita, I could look this one up too, that in other yoga systems, no sex. In the Shankara Sampradaya and other paths, no sex. And in Bhakti Yoga, sex is accepted under regulative principles. Then with that controlled, restricted sex life, one can make spiritual progress. Otherwise, Hare Krishna. You brought up adjusting things. Oh, wow, I see we're running out of time. And that reminded me of something. Well, the other rules you should try to follow as far as possible, but according to circumstances, they may be adjusted if necessary. But the 4 rules must be maintained. That's a letter to Gopal Krishna Das at the time, 13th May, 1969. There's also a place, and I don't exactly have it. I have a lot. In fact, I have too much. But this Prabhupada essentially said that we can't adjust these rules for the sake of, bringing people on board. These are our principles, and I'm not prepared to adjust them. That's essentially what he said. Not that because I'm preaching in the West, I'm prepared to adjust these rules. And I could probably find the place, but again, I have too much. You brought up that, what's the use? Yes, that's told by Hayagriva Prabhu. And that should be in my document somewhere, but I don't see it. But yes, Prabhupada explained what these 4 rules were, and specifically what no illicit sex was. And Hayagriva said, then what's the use? And Prabhupada said, yes. Finally, you brought up, not finally, you brought up so many good points, Madhuri. Wow. But you did bring up partners with different expectations and so on. And yes, that's also, I acknowledge that issue without going into it. Let's see. Okay. Oh, wait a second. Just looking at the chat box, which has this feature of moving around. But in any case, we're at 8 o'clock. And so we're going to follow the strict regulative principles and stop here at 8 so that people can sign on to Tuako, where I believe that Shrutakirti Prabhu is speaking this evening. So I'll just stop right here quite abruptly and thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And we will continue next week.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you so much, Maharaj.
Jai.